Today, we welcome our amazing guest, DK Kang on Healing Horizons with Sima, who is a author, wellness advocate, and someone who's walked through seasons of real struggle. His wife's cancer battle, job loss, and financial hardship. Out of those trials, DK forged a message of strength, resilience, and healing that goes far beyond the physical. From the power of mindset and mindfulness to food as medicine and resilience as a daily practice, this conversation promises to inspire anyone seeking light in the middle of life's storms. So, DK Kang, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me on your show.
Warmly welcome. It's my pleasure to have you here, Kang. Like, let's start with you have said healing isn't just a physical, it's emotional and spiritual too. So I really wonder that how did you first discover that connection in your own journey?
Healing for emotional and spiritual. So for me, I'm a pretty spiritual guy. I read the Bible every day, and there's a scripture that comes to mind for me. It's in Philippians 4. It says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." And so, when life hits, hard, like a cancer diagnosis, my wife was diagnosed with cancer in the end of 2023. And then she started treatment in February 2024. Let my employer know to have a flexible work schedule. They ended up saying, yeah, that's great. And then a week after I disclosed my wife's cancer diagnosis to my employer, they decided to let me go. And so for me, I could have been let my emotions kind of get the best of me and say, oh, well, we don't have a job. My wife has cancer. And we could have went down this spiral of emotions of how do we navigate this? So when I lost my job, I came home that night, told my wife, and we prayed. But instead of asking, why us? Why is this happening to us? Why do we have cancer? Why do I, lose my job? Instead of asking that, I asked, well, why not us, God? And so I reframed it instead of like asking the why, but why not us? And who can this help down the line maybe? Yeah, this is terrible in the moment, but Philippians says, "Do not be anxious about anything." And so we didn't rely on our emotions. We didn't want to be anxious about the unknown of cancer and job loss. And so that's kind of how I reframed it with the spiritual and emotional side of it.
That's incredibly powerful and deeply moving. And I really admire the perspective you found in such challenging circumstances, like choosing to ask, why not us, instead of getting stuck in blame, shows a remarkable strength and faith for sure. It's really inspiring to hear that how you turned such hardship into a pathway for emotional and spiritual growth. And like when the body is in pain, how do you convince the mind and spirit not to give up?
Yeah, so yeah, I've been doing martial arts for 34 years. I'm also a licensed massage therapist that helps deal with athletic recovery, athletic performance, but also pain management. And so, our bodies go through many things. A lot of times we hold emotional, insecurities or emotional baggage, and that could lead to pain in the body because our mind, our body, our spirit, it's all connected as one. And
Mhm.
I mean, you got to work on your mind because everything starts with the mind. If you think you can't do something, or if you think you're not good enough, or you think, woe is me, and being in that victim mindset of, oh, well, the world is against me. My wife has cancer. I lost my job. But instead of that mentality, just having ownership, taking responsibility for your life, for your mind, for your body. And, sometimes when you're going through pain, whether it be emotional or physical, seek help, seek someone that for your mind, seek someone that can help you navigate what you're thinking, what you're feeling. For physical pain, add some movement because exercise helps with pain, it reduces inflammation. Find a massage therapist that can help with soft tissue, maybe find a chiropractor that can help with the skeletal. And so, we as humans, we're not made to be here alone. We're here to help and serve one another because we don't have all the answers. Not one person has all the answers.
I agree. And that's moving at the same time because it shows that healing is like layered and each layer supports the other when life feels unbearable. And I completely agree with your perspective. Now, food became a huge part of your recovery story. So, what shifted for you when you embraced a plant based diet and even kimchi?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm Korean, so I grew up eating kimchi all my life, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Uh, you know, I actually have a cookbook called the Kimchi Connection Cookbook. Um, it's a book basically about how you can integrate kimchi into your own dishes, but also how you can help with your gut health because there's a lot of so your immune system is about 70%. It sits in your gut and there's a big brain gut connection. And when you add probiotics like fermented foods, it helps with the microbiome in your gut and it helps you to build a stronger immune system. And so that's kind of how that book kind of came about. But for us, I grew up, doing martial arts and I've kind of always been I ate pretty healthy. My parents owned a restaurant and it was always home cooking for me, and a lot of vegetables because that's the traditional Korean diet. And so, when my wife got diagnosed with cancer, we started doing a lot of research on cancer and research on nutrition. And, a couple books that we read a lot of books, but a couple books that actually stood out to us was one that was called Chris Beat Cancer. So Chris' work he was like 25 or 26 years old. He had stage 3 colon cancer and he actually opted out of doing like the traditional chemotherapy, radiation. He just did surgery and then he completely changed his diet and lifestyle around. And he actually talks about that in his book about what type of nutrition we need. And it was a lot about a whole food plant based diet and how whole foods help with different vitamins, different minerals that could help beat or fight cancer. Like a food would be broccoli sprouts. Broccoli sprouts has 10 times more cancer fighting compounds than regular broccoli. And so, we read his book. We read another book called The Rainbow Diet, where you try to make your entire plate the rainbow colors. You get your purple, your blue, your red, your yellow, orange, and mainly trying to make it more plant based. So, we're reading that. Read another book called Beating Cancer with Nutrition. And, all these books are talking about a whole food plant based diet and how they affect your immune system, how they affect your body, how they affect your mind, and how they actually fight cancer. And so, we had to, after reading these books, for me, I'm I'm a pretty action oriented person. When a book tells me to go do something, I'm like, all right, let's go do it. Let's try it. And, instead of asking, how do we fight cancer? How do we survive cancer? I think the question was, well, who's done it before us and what have they done? And so let's implement what they've done because I mean, it's their story. They've absolutely, survived cancer, they beat it and then they're thriving years after. And so, when you hear the news cancer, it really turns your life upside down. And so kind of give you a quick backstory. When I lost my job and my wife started chemotherapy for her cancer, we get a bill for the first chemo treatment for one is $80,000 US dollars. And so she has to do 12 of the chemotherapy plus radiation, plus surgery, plus MRIs, and the list goes on with 2 years of surveillance. And I'm like, wow, like one treatment for cancer, one chemo treatment is $80,000. And so if she had to do 12 and plus everything else, it would have been over $1 million. And so, for me, I look at it as, I mean, we eventually got Cobra insurance. and things worked out. But for me, I want people to realize the cost of what a cancer diagnosis really is. People people go bankrupt. People, lose their homes. People, you know, become homeless because of these medical bills. But if we can prevent it, if we could prevent cancer, if we can prevent autoimmune diseases through our food, through our stress, changing our mind, um, it's definitely a lot cheaper. And you have one mind, one body, and one life. Think of it as if you only had one vehicle or one car in your entire life, how would you treat that car? Or if you had only one motorcycle or whatever, how would you treat it? The same thing for us. We have that one body, we have that one car, and so many of us don't treat it very well. And I live in the United States, and we, it's called the standard American diet, which spells sad, and it's fast food, it's sugary drinks, it's uh, you know, processed foods. But our digestive system can't process all that, all the fast food, all the processed foods, all the sugary drinks. And then we end up getting cancer. We ended up getting autoimmune diseases. And if you I was doing a lot of research on cancer. Cancer is not cancer is not a genetic disease no more. It's a lifestyle disease. It's from the foods that we eat. It's the stress that we have. It's the environment that we're in and all the chemicals that we're around. And so, as when I lost my job, I started journaling, and I, my journaling ended up turning into a book called Mindset Metamorphosis. And it was a way to help me to, because I was stressed, I was overwhelmed, I was stuck. I'm like, I don't know how we're going to get through this, but with God we can. But for me, I was like, well, I'm pretty sure there's other people out there that are dealing with these kind of life situations. So I wrote the book in a way to help people help someone else out, to help them move on to the next step, just start transforming their mind, to start taking action for their life and not being in that victim mindset. And so, but to really take the opportunity saying, hey, I have ownership of my own life. So yeah, that was a lot.
That's really fascinating, DK. And it's really great to see that how food became such a meaningful part of your healing journey. I also love how you not only embraced a plant-based diet, but also explored something as specific as beneficial as kimchi. And the fact that you have turned that into a cookbook makes it so practical for others who want to, integrate these habits into their own lives. It really shows that how personal transformation can become a source of guidance for others. Now, like food, as you said, that it became a part of a recovery story. Okay. Now, for someone, who's skeptical about food as medicine, what's one change you'd like to recommend they try first?
One change, I would say start small, start reading books about nutrition. There's so much evidence out there. There's several documentaries. Like I said, I've been an athlete all my life. There's a documentary called The Game Changers, and it's about a plant-based diet and athletic performance. There's another documentary called Live to 100, and it's about people that consistently live to over 100 years old without any diseases, no dementia, no cancer. And it's their lifestyle, it's their what they're eating and their community. And there's only like 5 or 6 cities in the world that actually that actually live to 100 consistently without any diseases, things like that. So that's a great documentary. Another documentary is called Forks Over Knives. It's about what our food is compared to going to the doctor and getting surgery to remove tumors and things like that. So it's called Forks Over Knives because forks is you're eating with a fork, but the knife part is like the surgery part of seeing the doctor and how that correlates. But there's so many other documentaries. There's so many books out there. Listen to podcasts. There's so many podcasts that talk about a plant-based diet and how it's beneficial. Take ownership for yourself and just continue to learn about it. We live in a society where everything is so fast paced. When's the last time we actually slow down and actually are looking at our food and, you know, having gratitude for that food, the person who made it, the person who cooked it, where it came from. A lot of times we're just eating so fast or checking emails or watching TV at the same time. We don't even notice what we're even eating. And, like just to pause and slow down. Those are some steps and learn from somebody doing it and ask them questions why they're doing it. And how should I start with growing your own broccoli sprouts, start with adding one fruit or vegetable to your plate. That's a whole food. And slowly lean off of the processed food and the sugary drinks. And I give you a quick story, a quick example. For me, when I was 12, um at this time, I've been doing martial arts. I didn't experiment on myself because my parents owned a restaurant. So I drank a lot of soda, a lot, because it was always there. But I did this experiment where I'm like, I wonder what soda is going to do to my athletic performance. So I drank soda. I ran 3 miles, which is like a 5K or something like that. And I felt really thirsty. I felt sluggish and I felt really tired. And then the next day I tried it I just drank water, no soda. I ran the same 3 miles, okay, the same time, same weather conditions, everything. And I felt lighter. I felt more energy. I felt like I could run another 5K or 3 miles. Like right after my 3 miles, I was done with. And so I was like, oh, wow, there's a big correlation to soda in my athletic performance. So ever since then, when I was 12, I have not drank any soda since then because I'm like, it made me feel terrible and I can't perform at my best. So that's kind of an example, some things that I did. And yeah, I mean, start small and keep learning about food and nutrition.
That's such a great reminder that healing often starts in the kitchen with and also with small choices that can ripple into transformation. Now, you have lived through some deeply challenging seasons, and that's like you have came out through it. That's remarkable. So, what role did mindfulness play in carrying you through those times?
You said mindfulness strategies or
Hmm. Mindfulness.
mindfulness? Yeah. So breath work, is a big part. Deep breaths in through your nose, out your mouth. There's many ways to do breath work. Meditation is a big part of my life. You can meditate for 10 seconds to 20 minutes, however, whatever you feel comfortable. Meditation kind of helps bring you to the present, kind of calms that nervous system. Mindful eating. If we actually chew 20 times of what we're actually eating, it would actually help our digestive system because your digestive system doesn't have to work as hard to try to break down those bigger food particles. So those are some of the mindful things that I've done. Mindful movement. Go outside, get some sunlight. So many of us are at a desk and doesn't get any sunlight. Sunlight is good for vitamin D production. It actually reduces inflammation and it actually makes you feel better just by being in the sun because it's warm and so yeah, those are some of the mindful things that I kind of do that I talk about in my book as well. Mindful sleep, like start preparing for sleep. Sleep is so important. Shut down all your electronics an hour before you go to bed. Maybe read a book, and so you can give your mind and that your body that time to like, okay, it's time to wind down. It's time to sleep, and just things like that. Very simple, practical action steps that anybody could take. Because so many of us are checking social media, we're on YouTube, we're watching a movie in bed, and the blue light actually tricks our mind saying, "Oh, it's daylight outside, so I need to stay up." But that triggers your stress levels, that triggers your cortisol levels, and so yeah, I mean, be mindful of like your sleep time. So those are some big key things that I do myself that I talk about in my mindset book.
It's really powerful to hear how mindfulness served as a steady anchor during, such your difficult seasons, and the way you describe it makes the practice feel both accessible and transformative, like you shared that being in the sun. It's like showing how something as simple as being present can have a profound impact on navigating life's toughest moments, I must say. So, like, this was an uplifting exchange with you, DK Kang, for sure. From food as medicine to resilience as daily practice, your story reminds us that healing is never one dimensional. It's a journey of the body, mind, and spirit working in harmony. So, listeners, if this conversation touched you, anchored you somewhere, let it be an invitation. Take one small step today toward your own healing, whether it's a mindful pause, a nourishing meal, or simply choosing hope. So, until next time, keep expanding your horizons of health and wholeness.
One thing I want to mention is people can go to my website, dkkang.com, and they can sign up for my newsletter. I send out a weekly newsletter about stories and about resilience and about just having grit and gratitude and grace for yourself. I'm actually giving away the first chapter of my book, Mindset Metamorphosis, if you subscribe to my newsletter as a free download. So, yeah.
That's noteworthy. You're mostly welcome, DK Kang. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.